What's up, everyone? In this episode, we'll be taking a closer look at the Holy Trinity, or rather the Soft Trinity in Guild Wars 2, so just sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Also, please don't forget to rate the video, comment the video, and subscribe for more videos like these in the future. Thanks.
So I'm here with Colin. He's the lead content designer for Guild Wars 2, and man, we have a lot to talk about. Guild Wars was known for sort of messing up the space of MMOs and shaking things up a little bit. Guild Wars 2 is basically taking the foundation and destroying it and building something that's newer and better. One of those things is, I don't have to have a healer in my group.
Yeah.
What is my priest going to do to feel better about himself now?
Well, what we've tried to do with that is every profession in the game can kind of fill the roles that they need to fill based on what the party needs at any given time. So we're getting rid of that moment where you've got you and your three buddies and you're hanging out and there's this thing you really want to do and no one wants to play the priest and you're trying to find somebody to play the priest and you spend 40 minutes sitting around typing, looking for group, need a priest. We don't think that's fun. I don't know a lot of people who enjoy doing that.
It's one of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah.
LF tank, please.
So we want to get rid of that, and what we've done is we've given each class the ability to play a lot of different roles, and you can hot swap those roles while you're in combat. A Necromancer is a great support character, but you can swap weapon sets, and you can swap roles in the middle of combat, and you can actually go up and tank, and then you can pull back out again, and you can start doing DPS. Each one of the professions has the abilities to do this to a certain degree, so they can fill the roles that their party needs, and you can play the profession that you want to play, and then you change your roles based on what your party needs as you're in the battle.
Another thing is all players can res in our game. Every single character in the game can run up, kneel down, and give downed players back health to pop them back up to life. And you get rewarded for doing so, so players are encouraged to help one another. So if you run into people and you're fighting around them and you go down, other people can run up and res you, and you create these kind of ad hoc groups that form where people become friends and they end up helping each other because they're incentivized to do so and because the game rewards you for doing it. So those are some of the core things that are just designed across the game to support that social aspect. Another thing is the way that we approach combat in general in Guild Wars 2. The so-called Holy Trinity of your DPS, your tank, and your healer is the basic combat design and balance of just about every MMO that's been made for the last 10 years or so. And we took a look at that and we said, hey, it works in some areas, but there are some certain areas where it completely fails. And one of the problems with that is, and I'm sure many of you who played MMOs have experienced this, you've got 7 people in your group and you need one more person and you need a healer. You're like, man, we need that healer to finish this party off. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. And everybody's looking around and you got one buddy online and he's like, God, I hate playing a healer. I don't want to play a healer. I got my warrior. I want to use my warrior. Like, no, dude, you got to do the healer if we're going to do this. There's nothing fun about that. You should be able to make the character that you want to make, you should be able to play the game that you want to play, and you should be able to play together without having people stuck in specific roles. We've all had moments where we've sat around for 40 minutes or an hour waiting to form a group so we can actually play something. We call that waiting to have fun at ArenaNet. We would rather you be having fun. So we've designed our combat systems so that there is no dedicated healers in Guild Wars 2. There is no targeting other players to put heals directly on them. Every character class has their own healing skill that they can use so that they are somewhat self-sufficient on their own. And then there are a number of support classes that provide healing abilities that work in AoE areas around you or create areas on the ground where you can actually see that there are healing pools and giant showers of water coming out that people can run into so they get healed. So that process becomes really visceral, where characters can work together by seeing what's going on the screen. Instead of watching all the little UI bars and health bars moving around, they're actually watching what other players are doing and working together. We've designed cross-class combos, so an elementalist can put down a firewall, and a ranger can shoot arrows through that firewall. The arrows will catch on fire, and any target they hit lights on fire. You can put a poison cloud down, and people can run inside the poison cloud and attack out of it, and all their attacks pick up that poison. And all of this is very easy to see and understand in the world to encourage this social gaming experience where people want to be around other players, and they're incentivized to do so, and they can work together without even having to talk. And what we found is when you incentivize players to do this, they end up actually talking more, and they become friends, and they end up forming groups. And we've seen just on the game show floor, even here at Comic-Con this weekend, people will be roaming around, and all of a sudden they'll run into another player, and they start moving with them. And then a third player picks up, and they all start going together. And all of a sudden they start playing content together. And this is just in the period of 40 minutes on a trade show floor where literally you can't hear anything. You can't even hear yourself talk. And these groups are forming up just naturally like that. And there's something really cool about that, and that's a huge part of the social experience for us.
We also saw a little bit of class variety this morning. Hunters, for example, warriors will be able to use hunter-style bows, and there is no dedicated raising and healing class.
Yes. So that was another thing. We didn't want players to have to wait around for a particular profession. We didn't want players to have to play a profession that they maybe didn't want to play because, the group of players I play with, none of them wants to play a healer, and so I guess I better play a healer. We didn't want you to have to play with that player you maybe really don't like playing with, but he's the only warrior you know, so you kind of put up with them, that sort of thing. And so what we've done is made all of our professions very versatile. So you mentioned a warrior before. A warrior with a bow in many games is you use a bow for pulling or things like that. You can't really deal good range damage as a warrior. In Guild Wars 2 that's not the case. A warrior with a bow can deal really good range damage. Then they have multiple weapon sets. They can switch that up, and so they can switch to dual axes and become a melee damage dealer. You could also equip maybe a mace and a shield and become more of a resistant damage absorbing character. Or if you wanted to, you could equip a war horn and buff your teammates. And so the warrior is really, really versatile, and we bring that over to all of our professions.
I talked a little bit about removing the Holy Trinity from the game, and one of the things that we've done to help support that is characters, just about all the professions in the game, can swap weapon sets when they're in combat. So for example, a warrior can be using 2 axes, and in the middle of combat they can swap to a longbow, and there's suddenly a character who is able to be really capable at range. And what happens is, instead of characters being locked into a specific role, you're able to actually change roles in combat and change the function that you have based on what the things you're fighting against are doing. So combat becomes very reactive. It becomes very almost instinctual, where something happens and then you're reacting to it and you're changing your gameplay style, instead of a traditional MMO where you have one gameplay style and that is the only thing you can do. You are a warrior, this is what you do, you tank. Instead, you can be up there and you can be fighting in the front lines. You roll out of there, your buddy jumps up front and they start taking things in, and everybody's moving back and forth and dynamically working together to take advantage of the fact that you're not stuck in one specific role. It also allows you to make the choice when you create a character. You don't have to ask yourself, do I want to be a healer? Do I want to be a DPS? Do I want to be a tank? You can ask yourself, do I want to be a warrior? Do I want to be a ranger? What is the trope that I want to fill? What character do I really love? And then when you play that character, you can actually play that character however you want. You can go and you can be a tank for a while, and then you can swap over and you can start playing at range. You can play the way that you feel like playing, using the class that you really love, rather than having the class that you really love be hamstrung into one very specific category, and that's all it can do. So from a high-level design perspective, that's some of the stuff that we're doing with combat and with the basic game mechanics to support social activities in the game.
My question is about tanking in Guild Wars 2. You said you're getting rid of the Holy Trinity. One of my deals in Guild Wars 1, I never understood how aggro worked. I felt like I couldn't actually hold anything if I was trying to tank. Will a certain classes be better at tanking? Will it take less damage than an elementalist, let's say? Will a warrior take less damage? And is there a way for you to get an enemy to stick on you?
So yeah, 2 answers to that. First off, the aggro system in Guild Wars 2 is extremely simple. It's basically, if you go up and attack a creature, that creature will focus on the nearest player to them that they are fighting. And so what that means is that basically everyone can fill that tank role if you want, because they can be the guy who runs up and starts getting involved while somebody else backs out. And they can go in and out and be replacing each other constantly. With that basic aggro system, it allows everybody to fill that role. There are professions that are squishier than others. There are the lighter armors than the heavier armors. The difference is that we give each one of those professions the ability to do different things. So like an elementalist, it tends to be a pretty squishy class. They also have the earth elemental attunement that they can swap over to, which gives them a lot of abilities when they're up close to take a lot of damage and hang tough. So what you can be doing is you can be hanging in the middle and you can be using air magic, you can roll back and you can unleash a lot of fire magic and be in range, and you could run up front and get your buddy out of there while you switch to earth magic and hold down the front line for a little while and then back out again. And parties can be constantly doing this and swapping with one another. And what we've seen is we've actually playtested a lot of dungeons, and dungeons are 5-man content. And we've playtested them with 5 elementalists, we've playtested them with 5 warriors, we've playtested them with 5 thieves. And what you end up seeing is that people dynamically work together and are able to bounce back and forth, so everybody is constantly changing the things they're doing and reacting to what's going on in combat. When somebody gets in trouble, they basically dodge roll out of there, and then somebody else comes in and kind of fills that spot for a little while, and they bounce back and forth. As opposed to basically, you are the tank, you stand in the front line forever. Instead, everybody's working together, filling all the different roles as they need them in the party.
So you notice he's in Water Attunement. We kind of hit on this a little bit earlier. In Water Attunement, he becomes much more of a support character. Notice he's healing. You can see the green numbers there. He's healing his allies that are nearby. If he wants to, he can switch back to Fire Attunement and be much more of a damage dealer. This is part of the versatility that we want all our players to have. And speaking of that, so the other thing is, all of our players in the world can revive any downed player or NPC, and they can do that because we don't want players to have to wait for a particular profession in order to play. We want players to be able to play with whoever they really want to play with, and we want to encourage players to think of other players as always being a positive thing. Other players mean that if you get knocked down, they can get you back up no matter who they are. You can see our Char there. He's a warrior, and I wanted to talk a little bit about our versatility of our professions. So we saw the Elementalist, and we saw how he was versatile by changing attunements. An Elementalist has 4 different attunements to choose from. And you'll see kind of our philosophy with our characters is we don't want anything that our characters can do to feel like it's kind of secondary, like it's not effective. In most games, you have a warrior, you grab a bow. That bow is only used as kind of a tool for pulling or something like that. It's not really a damage dealing weapon. And in our game, a warrior with a bow can really deal some good damage. There's a player actually in a golem battle suit, so we'll kind of get away from him there. And you'll see, for example, our Char warrior is able to inflict heavy AoE damage with his bow. And so he can take on kind of that range damage roll. Changing rolls is really simple. He can have another weapon set equipped, and he can change his weapons, and then you see his first 5 skills change. Now he's got 2 axes equipped, and he's kind of a melee damage dealer now at this point. If he wanted to, he could equip a Mason Shield to become a sort of more defensive character. He could, instead of having a shield, equip a Warhorn, which would make him sort of more support character. And so you can change kind of your role in the battlefield very, very easily. And this is something that we want to emphasize. We want to make it so that you don't have to have any particular profession in order to play the game. We don't want you to stand around waiting for, a half hour, waiting for that one healer to come along. We don't want you to have to play a healer because, the group you play with, none of them want to play a healer, so I guess you're going to kind of bite the bullet and play one even though you don't think it's that fun. We don't want you to have to play with that kind of guy who you really don't want to play with, except for he's a healer and he's kind of always around and you kind of need a healer, so you're willing to kind of play with him. We don't want you to have to do that. We want you to be able to play with whoever you want to play with. Play with your friends, play with the people that you enjoy playing with. That's sort of our philosophy.